The Forgotten Debt. The crystal cities of Kelthera burned beneath an alien sky, their once magnificent spires crumbling under the relentless bombardment of Thrakari warships. Elder Mirathon pressed her scaled hands against the observation decks, transparent walls watching her people's greatest achievements turn to ash and ruin. The evacuation sirens had been wailing for 3 days now, but there was nowhere left to run. "Elder, the final transport is ready," whispered her aide, voice trembling with barely contained grief. "The Thrakari will breach the planetary shields within the hour." Mirathon's ancient eyes, still sharp despite her 8 centuries of life, remained fixed on the destruction below. She remembered when these same cities had welcomed lost souls from across the galaxy, offering shelter and hope to any who needed it. The Kelhari had always been a peaceful race, their greatest weapons being their kindness and wisdom. Now that same compassion had made them easy prey for the Thrakari Empire's endless hunger for conquest. "Send the signal," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of desperation and something else, something that had sustained her through the darkest moments of the siege. Hope. "Elder, the Galactic Council has already refused to intervene. The other species fear the Thrakari too, much to help us. Who else is there to call?" Mirathon turned away from the burning skyline, her expression holding secrets that predated the current galactic order. "There are debts in this universe that span centuries, young one. Some promises echo across time itself." She moved to the ancient communication array, her fingers dancing across controls that hadn't been used in 200 years. "Send it on the old frequency, the one we used when the stars were younger and hope was still possible." The aide looked confused but obeyed. As the signal began broadcasting into the void, Mirathon closed her eyes and remembered another time, another crisis, when her people had saved strangers from the darkness between stars. 2 centuries ago, the human colony ship Resilience had been dying in the grip of a massive solar storm. Its shields were failing, its engines dead, and its 3,000 passengers were facing certain death when Kelari patrol ships found them drifting in the cosmic maelstrom. Without hesitation, Mirathon's people had risked everything to save, the humans pulling their damaged vessel to safety and welcoming the refugees to Kelthera. The humans had stayed for 7 years, learning, healing, and building their strength. Their leader, a man named Jonathan Chen, had sworn an oath before departing. "The Kelhari showed us that compassion exists among the stars. If ever you face darkness, call to us. Humanity never forgets a debt of the heart." Then they had vanished, into the outer rim, and the galaxy had assumed they were just another minor species, destined to fade into obscurity among the countless failed colonies that littered space. The Galactic Council had removed humans from their active records after 50 years of silence. But Mirathon had never forgotten the intensity in Jonathan Chen's eyes when he made that promise. The signal broadcast for 6 hours before anything happened. Then space itself seemed to shiver above Kelthera. The first sign was the disappearance of 3 Thrakari scout ships at the system's edge. They simply vanished from sensors without distress calls or debris fields. Warlord Crux, commanding the siege from his flagship Bone Crusher, initially dismissed it as equipment failure. The second sign was harder to ignore. A probe near the system's outer planets detected massive gravity distortions, as if something enormous was moving through space without traditional engines. The readings made no sense, showing energy signatures that didn't match any known technology in the galactic database. The third sign made Crux's blood run cold. His long-range sensors registered a single contact approaching from the outer system. Then 2, then 10. Then hundreds. By the time his tactical officers finished their count, over 3,000 unknown vessels were bearing down on Kelthera, moving in perfect formation at speeds that should have been impossible. "What fleet is this?" Crux demanded, his scarred face twisted with rage and confusion. "The Council cowards said they wouldn't intervene." His intelligence officer, a veteran of dozens of conquered worlds, studied the readings with growing alarm. "Sir, these ships don't match any known configuration. The energy outputs are unprecedented, and they're broadcasting on frequencies I've never encountered." The mysterious fleet decelerated as it reached the system's inner boundaries, revealing vessels that defied conventional design. They were massive, their hulls dark as the void between stars, with sleek lines that suggested both beauty and terrible purpose. No two ships were exactly alike, yet they moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single vast intelligence. On Calthera's surface, Marathon felt her hearts racing as the approaching fleet registered on their sensors. Could it be? After 200 years? The answer came in the form of a transmission that reached every ship, station, and communication array in the system. The voice was human, unmistakably so, carrying an accent that Marathon remembered from long-ago conversations in Calthera's Crystal Gardens. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Corps. We received a distress call from our friends, the Kalhari." The transmission paused, and when it resumed, the voice carried steel beneath its politeness. "We've come to pay an old debt." Warlord Crux's massive frame tensed in his command throne. Humans, the species hadn't been seen or heard from in generations. They were supposed to be extinct, or at best scratching out a living on some forgotten frontier worlds. Yet here was a fleet that dwarfed his own, with technology that made his advanced warships look primitive by comparison. "Unknown fleet, this is Warlord Crux of the Thrakari Empire. You are interfering in a legitimate conquest. The Kalhari world is now property of the Empire. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." The response came not in words, but in action. A single human vessel, no larger than a Thrakari cruiser, detached from the fleet and approached Crux's flagship. The Bone Crusher's weapon systems locked onto the approaching ship, but before Crux could give the order to fire, every system on his vessel went dead. Life support, weapons, engines, even the artificial gravity all shut down simultaneously. Emergency lighting bathed the bridge in an eerie red glow as his crew scrambled at useless control panels. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the blackout ended. Every system came back online, functioning perfectly. But now there was something new on Crux's tactical display. The human ship had somehow penetrated his shields and was sitting motionless just a few hundred meters from his hull. Its weapons weren't powered, its shields weren't raised, yet Crux's most advanced vessel had been rendered completely helpless in a matter of seconds. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice returned to the communication channels, calm and conversational. "I apologize for the demonstration, Warlord Crux. We wanted to make sure we had your attention. Now let me explain the situation. 200 years ago, the Kalhari saved 3,000 human lives when our colony ship was dying in space. They asked for nothing in return except that we remember their kindness. The human fleet began to spread out, forming a protective barrier between the Thrakari forces and Calthara. As they moved, their true numbers became clear. What had initially appeared to be 3,000 ships was just the vanguard. More vessels were emerging from the outer system, thousands upon thousands of them, representing technology and organization that surpassed anything the galaxy had seen. "We've spent the last 2 centuries preparing for this day," Admiral Chen continued, "building our strength, developing our capabilities, and waiting for the moment when our friends might need us. Every human child learns the story of Kalhari, compassion. Every human ship carries the oath our ancestors made." On Calthera's surface, Elder Marathon wept tears of joy as she watched the human fleet take position above her world. The young human she had known as Jonathan Chen's daughter had grown into something magnificent and terrible, a protector with the power to reshape the balance of the galaxy. The Thrakari Empire had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved countless species, and built their power on the principle that might made right. They had never encountered anything that could challenge their supremacy. But as Warlord Crux stared at the impossible fleet surrounding his forces, he began to understand that the galaxy was about to change forever. Admiral Chen's final transmission of the day carried a warning that would echo across space for generations. "The Kalhari are under human protection now. Any who would harm them will answer to us. We suggest you consider your next actions very carefully." In the depths of space, the human fleet waited with the patience of a species that had learned the value of preparation, loyalty, and keeping promises made in the darkest of times. The price of gratitude. The battle for Kelthara began at dawn, when the twin suns of the system cast long shadows across the assembled fleets. Warlord Crux had spent the night calling for reinforcements, demanding that every available Thrakari vessel converge on the system. The Empire's reputation was at stake, and more importantly, their expansion plans could not be delayed by mysterious humans with delusions of power. By morning, over 5,000 Thrakari warships surrounded Kelthara, representing the largest military force the Empire had ever assembled. The vessels ranged from massive dreadnoughts bristling with planet-killing weapons to swift attack fighters designed to overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer numbers. It was a force that had conquered entire sectors, reducing proud civilizations to ash and memory. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship Remembrance, studying the tactical displays with the calm focus of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire life. Around her, the human fleet had arranged itself, in formations that seemed almost artistic in their precision. Each ship knew its role. Each captain understood their part in a plan that had been refined over 2 centuries of preparation. "Admiral, the Thrakari are moving into attack formation," reported Commander Torres, the fleet's tactical coordinator. "Intelligence suggests they're planning a coordinated assault to overwhelm our defenses through superior numbers." Sarah nodded, her expression unchanged. She was the great-granddaughter of Jonathan Chen, the man who had sworn humanity's oath to the Kelhari, and she carried the weight of that promise in every decision. "They're fighting the last war, Commander. They assume quantity will overcome quality. They don't understand what we've become. The transformation of humanity over the past 2 centuries had been nothing short of remarkable. After leaving Kelthara, the survivors of the Resilience had dedicated themselves to building something unprecedented in galactic history. Not an empire based on conquest, but a civilization founded on the principles of protection and mutual aid. They had spread across the Outer Rim, establishing hidden colonies, research stations, and industrial centers that remained invisible to the major galactic powers. Every human world had contributed to the great project. Scientists developed technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics. Engineers designed ships that could repair themselves and adapt to any combat situation. Military theorists studied every major conflict in galactic history, learning from the victories and defeats of countless species. Most importantly, every human carried the story of Kelhari kindness, understanding that their entire civilization existed because strangers had chosen compassion over indifference. The Thrakari attack began with a massive barrage from their heavy dreadnoughts. Thousands of plasma bolts and quantum torpedoes streaked across space toward the human fleet, enough firepower to sterilize entire planets. The weapons struck the human formations and simply disappeared, absorbed by defensive systems that converted the incoming energy into power for their own systems. Warlord Crux watched in growing disbelief as his most powerful weapons proved completely ineffective. Impossible. Nothing can absorb that much firepower. His weapons officer, veteran of 100 battles, studied the readings with trembling hands. "Sir, their defensive technology is beyond our understanding. It's as if they're converting our attacks into fuel for their own systems." The human response was swift and devastating. Instead of returning fire with conventional weapons, the human ships projected fields of energy that simply shut down Thrakari vessels one by one. Engines died, weapons powered down, and life support systems switched to emergency modes. Within minutes, hundreds of Thrakari ships were drifting helplessly in space, their crews unharmed but completely powerless. Admiral Chen's voice resonated across all communication channels, calm and measured. "This is your first and final warning. The Kelhari are under human protection. Withdraw from this system immediately, and no further harm will come to your forces." Warlord Crux's pride and the Empire's reputation demanded a response. He ordered his remaining forces to concentrate their fire on a single human vessel, believing that overwhelming one target would demonstrate Thrakari strength. Over 1,000 ships unleashed everything they had at the human destroyer Grace, named for a Kelhari word meaning unexpected kindness. The Grace absorbed the massive attack without even slowing down. Then it did something that redefined galactic warfare. The ship split into dozens of smaller vessels, each one moving with impossible speed and precision. They swept through the Thrakari formations like dancers, not destroying ships but somehow convincing them to simply stop fighting. Weapon systems shut down, aggressive formations dissolved, and within an hour, the entire Thrakari fleet was floating motionless in space. On Kelthara's surface, Elder Marathon watched the impossible battle with wonder and growing concern. The humans had returned as promised, but they had become something far beyond what she had imagined. Their power was absolute, their technology incomprehensible, and their capacity for both mercy and destruction unlimited. The transformation was complete when Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the entire galaxy. Her words reached every major world, every government center, every species that had ever doubted human significance. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking for humanity. Today marks the end of an old order and the beginning of something new. For too long, the strong have preyed upon the weak, and those with compassion have been seen as victims waiting to be conquered. No more. Across the galaxy, the leaders of major civilizations watched in stunned silence as thousands of human fleets revealed themselves simultaneously. They had been hidden in plain sight, disguised as minor trade vessels, research stations, and frontier colonies. In every major system, human forces emerged from the shadows, their presence making it clear that humanity had been watching, waiting, and preparing for generations. The Kelhari saved us when we were lost and dying, Admiral Chen continued. They asked for nothing except that we remember their kindness. We have remembered. We have grown strong so that kindness need never again bow to cruelty. The Galactic Council, meeting an emergency session on their neutral station, struggled to comprehend the new reality. Humanity, written off as extinct or irrelevant, had somehow become the dominant power in the galaxy. Their technology surpassed anything previously imagined, their organization was flawless, and their dedication to protecting others was absolute. Ambassador Velrus, a member of the Council for over 3 centuries, found his voice shaking as he addressed his colleagues. They've been planning this for 200 years. Every human world, every human ship, every human life dedicated to a single purpose, paying a debt of gratitude. We're not dealing with a military force. We're dealing with an entire civilization that has weaponized loyalty. The aftermath of the Battle of Kelthara reshaped galactic politics forever. The Thrakari Empire, faced with the choice between total destruction and peaceful coexistence, chose wisdom over pride. Warlord Crux, his fleet helpless around him, formally surrendered and agreed to withdraw from all Kelhari territories. But humanity's message extended far beyond a single battle. Within days, human fleets appeared at the borders of every aggressive empire, every slave-trading organization, and every force that built power through oppression. The message was simple. The age of conquest was over. Species that chose cooperation and mutual aid would find humanity's protection and friendship. Those who continued to prey upon others would face consequences beyond their imagination. Elder Marathon, standing in the restored crystal gardens of Kelthara, received a personal visit from Admiral Chen. The two women, separated by species and centuries, embraced like old friends reunited after a long journey. "Your people kept their promise," Marathon said, her voice filled with gratitude and amazement. Admiral Chen smiled, her expression carrying the warmth that had always defined humanity at its best. "We learned something important from the Kelhari, Elder. Kindness isn't weakness, it's the strongest force in the universe, especially when it's backed by the will to protect those who can't protect themselves." As they walked through gardens that bloomed once more beneath Kelthara's twin suns, Admiral Chen made one final declaration that would define the new galactic order. "The Kelhari taught us that civilization isn't measured by the strength of your weapons or the size of your empire. It's measured by how you treat those who have nothing to offer you in return. Humanity has learned that lesson well." The galaxy had wished humans would forget their debt to the Kelhari, seeing it as an inconvenient complication in the established order of the strong dominating the weak. Instead, they discovered that human gratitude, given time to grow and strengthen, could reshape the very foundations of spacefaring civilization. The age of conquest was over. The age of protection had begun, and at its heart was a simple truth that now echoed across 1,000 worlds. Humanity never forgets a favor, and the galaxy would never be the same.